Don't taste it yet, you son of a bitch.
Look, you said we're not going to make the drinks, so I'm like, fuck it, let's make the drinks beforehand. I'm not going to not. I can't keep up. I can't. I just can't. I got to mix my grenadine because it all sank to the bottom. Look at it. Can you see this? Can you see?
I can't see anything. I see the back of a fork.
Divided this. You really can't.
I do see it's quite settled to the bottom.
Divided is.
It's because you packed that shit in there. Like you just jammed it all down in. You know what? That's it. We're already going. This is an episode.
Intro, Paul.
We're doing an episode, Cars with Cocktails. We drink shit and talk about car stuff. And Charles,
apparently we get smashed beforehand without even having alcohol.
We haven't had a single drink yet, not a single one. And this is where we're at right now. So Charles is using a fork to jam his down into there because I'm
trying to get it stirred, man. Like the red shit was all settled at the bottom.
Well,
now it's all chunky. Oh man, look at this is so gross. Look at it's like little testicles down at the bottom of my drink.
We are drinking
something.
What are we drinking?
Hold on. It's the you sent me the ingredients, but it cut off the name. So this also, you need to charge your phone, bro.
We're Shirley Temple, the dirty Shirley Temple is what we're drinking today. So that's what we're drinking. This was recommended in the comments, Shirley Temples, as most of us who had probably alcoholic parents, when we went out places to eat or drink, we were given these as the drink that children were allowed to have. So I've never actually had an alcoholic version of this drink. Have you?
I don't think I have either, but nothing like your parents getting smashed and then you getting all loaded up on sugar and those delicious maraschino cherries, because you always had to get like a little extra bowl. And the waitress always did it because she don't give a shit about how much sugar you have, and she knew that would lead to a better tip. So you got like the glass like this, and hopefully 25 cherries, and that was kind of your dinner too. So it was pretty rad.
Yeah,
this is good. I mean, I wouldn't want to drink a ton. It's super sweet, but it tastes good.
It is sweet, but I actually do enjoy it. Mine's a little light on the Sprite. I'm using Sprite as my beverage of choice. I was hoping for 7-Up, but
is there a difference? I don't know that I could like taste test the difference between the two.
I almost guarantee I couldn't, but I just, for nostalgia reasons, I felt like 7-Up was cooler.
Gotcha. I went. I'm kind of heavy on everything. I feel like I did an accurate mixture. A lot of ice, a lot of testicles floating. Well, I guess not floating. A lot of testicles sinking down. I mean, look at that. They really do look like the innards of a testicle. I assume. I've never seen the inside of a testicle sack.
I did get snipped not too long ago, so someone
Cheers
saw
to that.
The inside of mine. The color of yours and the color of mine are drastically different, just to be clear. So your mixture and my mixture, yours is very
Mine's pretty pink. So I did 2 ounces of vodka. I did probably half an ounce of grenadine, and then the rest of my glass was Sprite. And it was very full with ice, because I am fill the glass all the way full with ice, like pack it full, and then make my drink.
Well, that's creating some mixture issues. Today, we're talking about suspension modifications. If you will, what would you say are suspension mods that you're into?
So for me, it largely depends on the vehicle, right? Because this can go all the different ways, all the way from Dance Nation bro to jack your truck up 4 feet. Even better, Carolina squat that shit, where you're like trying to do a wheelie. Which have you ever driven one of those trucks? Like,
I have never driven a Carolina squat truck. They're the dumbest fucking thing in the world, in my opinion. They don't even have anything. I don't even think they're cool even a little bit. They don't look cool. They're just fucking dumb. Like, at least a Brodozer, it's like jacked up and cool, and you can clear a bunch of shit, whatever. But like that,
I don't myself get it either. I always wonder though, every time I see one, like, you're up like this, can you even see over your hood.
I
Like,
cannot
what's in front of you?
imagine you could see well over your hood because you have a very harsh angle. It looks like the rear of the truck is 4 inches lower than the front.
Oh, I think that's a conservative one, dude. You need to hit the cookout where the kids hang out by my house, and that's where that shit's like 2 feet fucking different. No joke. It's like how like if you put anything in the bed of your truck, it would just roll to the back where the tailgate is. It's insane. But anyway, so there'll be plenty of time to hate
Should
on
that
that.
be in the shitty mods video that we did?
How did we not? I think because it's so shitty, and like my brain doesn't even process that that's something someone does to their car on purpose. It's more of like, wow, like the back end of your truck's broken. You should probably get that looked at pretty soon. So yeah, I don't like, I would drive. I'm trying to think. Okay, here's a question for you, Paul. Would you drive the Carolina Squat, or would you drive a Stance Nation Bro car? If you had to choose one, I know, like, you don't want to drive it.
Name a Stance Nation Bro car. Give me a specific car that's stanced out.
Okay, so let's make it a real fine piece
Like
of automotive
a Mazda
engineering.
MX-3.
No.
Hatchback?
I'm thinking more of like a more modern Civic, not like anything fancy, just like a Civic. Which leads me to a question I have for you, because maybe you know the answer to this. I heard this the other day, and I have no idea why this is the way that people think about this. So say, like, you know, the newer generation Civic, but I'm talking like you're riding on the inner edge of an inch of tire. It's like if this is normal zero camber, you're like,
I'm taking a Brodozer or the Carolina Squat just out of pure safety and practicality. I could imagine a heavy rain in a stanced out car that has like the ones that look fucking ridiculous, that this shit's like this. That shit must be terrifying to drive in the rain.
I would assume it's terrible to drive everywhere, like even out of your driveway. Have you ever seen them get stuck in like a 1-inch curb, and it's like, oh, I'm stuck, help me, friends, and everybody's like, ours are broke too, bro.
So I actually saw, this was not even a car that I would, I guess it was kind of stancy. It was a static Mark V that was so low that in Helen, for those who don't know, Helen is a popular place. They used to have a very popular car show, still has one that we were trying to plan an event at, but, and then COVID fucked us right in this straight up in the ass.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah.
Is that the new thanks, Obama?
It is like, thanks Obama. Yeah. Okay. But there was a dude in a Mark V who legitimately in Helen got stuck on a manhole cover, and he was he was just floating there like a turtle flipped over on his shell, and people had to like help lift his car. Like 12 people came and lifted his car off of the manhole cover.
They should have put it right in the fucking river.
so I don't even remember where we were going there. I think it was if I drove one of those cars. Is that right? I've never driven a car like that before, and I've never driven a Brodozer like that either. But I imagine in terms of just general day-to-day driving, it would suck less.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you're right. I think it would suck. It would still, keep in mind, my friends, this is like getting kicked in the balls or getting really kicked in the balls. It's not ideal either way. Like a golf spike versus a baseball spike, maybe getting kicked in the balls. You're still getting kicked in the nuts. Like, you still have to drive around in this thing. But so I heard something, and I promise we'll get to suspension mods in a little while. Maybe we'll see. We've already fired off a pretty wild show, I feel like, so far. So I saw this thing on TikTok, and it was talking about this whole like stanced Jetta, and she made a comment, and I was like, wow, like, is that a thing? I have no idea. Cause you know, there's always like the dick swinging conversation of a manual transmission is better than an automatic, right? That's the Johnny Big Dick thing to talk about. But she said that a stance car is better if it's an automatic. And like, I didn't want to follow up because I know no matter how I ask the question,
It's going to sound, you come on like a douche.
I would come off like just I'm hating on this girl. I'm an asshole. Like, fuck you, man pedals, man pedal for life thing. And that's not at all what it was. But you know, you lose all the context when you use text. But have you ever heard that stance cars are that way?
I've literally never heard that as a thing. I mean, obviously a lot of the context in the world we come from is in the Mark 7 world. It's always that DSGs are faster.
Right.
And it's not wrong. DSGs are
not
faster.
wrong at all.
I mean, if you can drive a manual anywhere near as fast as a DSG, props to you, because that's a huge accomplishment. But yeah, I have not heard of that. It's a kind of a weird perspective, and I don't know, is that is that a thing? I don't have cherries, so fuck you. I should have gotten cherries, and I didn't.
They're not maraschinos. They are red tart cherries. They are rather tart, and they are tasty. I need to put this jar over somewhere else because I want to just keep munching these because they are in fact tasty. Okay, so let's travel back in time to the original question you asked me about suspension mods and being a fan of them. I'm mixed on suspension mods. And I think the main reason I'm mixed is the majority of the suspension mods I see done are generally not done with intent and purpose for something that I think is like a good reason to modify the car. So the way I see it, and like, I know there's trucks and Jeeps and like trail clearances and all that stuff. And that's cool. That's not really a world that I'm like very familiar with. So that's not what I think of. That's not my first thought when I think of a suspension mod. I'm thinking cars. I'm thinking generally lowering a car or changing out shock absorbers, changing out springs, changing 2 coilovers, changing 2 air ride. That's sort of where my head is. And I think, unfortunately, the majority of the time, maybe not the majority of the time, but there are times when a car gets modified, the suspension gets modified with, let's just say, lowering springs, right? Let's say you buy a newer GTI. First thing you do, you put lowering springs on it. I often feel like it does not actually improve the overall driving experience of the car. I think, like anything, there's pros and cons, of course, but I don't really think that the pros of doing something as simple as lowering springs on an otherwise well-driving, well-maintained car actually does come out a net positive. I think it's generally a net negative. Unless you're purely going for how the car looks, then yeah, like, cars generally look cooler when they're lowered to a point, and then it's like, it's the curve, right? It's like cool. Nope.
Stupid, yeah.
It looks bad. Or you have bacon fenders or something like that.
Yeah. So I personally feel like, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I definitely think springs is something that I wouldn't say it's only an aesthetic mod, because it does have some improvement of, it'll reduce body roll and stuff like that. It does give you a harsher ride, so that has obviously some downsides to it too. You know, from a pure performance perspective, a rear sway bar is probably a better mod than springs are in terms of cost, just dollar for dollar, because they're similar in cost just for the product itself. Never mind that the effort is almost non-existent for a rear sway bar, and a lot of effort for springs.
Well, I can do springs on my car in 4 seconds, so I'm super good at stuff. Sarcasm. If I was put that sarcasm.
There was some sarcasm there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think dollar for dollar, a rear sway bar on a front or all-wheel drive car, because I think it's important to make sure that we say that it's front or all-wheel drive is really when we're focusing on rear sway. Probably the best mod you can do with the least negative and the most positive at the best price, right? My next one would probably be tires, especially like I think this is really what gets me about lowered cars, right? It's one of the early mods that people do. I think that if you took a poll of all car owners, right, and we'll try and stay like in our VW Audi wheelhouse, maybe not Audi quite as much, but in the VW world, I think the mod that people do very early on: intake, exhaust, tune, springs. Out of all of those, I think the springs are probably my least favorite. Air intake is not far behind. They may battle for first place there. And the problem is you're changing so much of the car, but you're not changing so much of the car, if that makes any sense. Like, I think if you were to compare a vehicle with average tires and lowering springs and good tires for the situation on stock suspension, the car on stock suspension would probably outperform the car with a lowered suspension.
Oh, 100% of the time. But the problem with that is, I mean, one, cost is also huge. You're talking about probably
it though? No way. No way.
$1,000 for tires.
How much does it cost for lowering springs, labor, and an alignment?
Well, let's say hypothetically you're a DIYer.
You still should get the car aligned though.
Yeah, so you're talking about what, $350, $400,
$400 versus $600 maybe for a set of tires.
Yes, and the tires. Number one, if you get good tires, you're probably going to torch through them fast because they're probably high wear tires, right? So they're not going to last very long. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, for the average person who's the average modifier who's on a limited budget, it's not the most practical choice. Now, I don't disagree. It just accomplishes more aesthetically, and again, performance-wise, dollar for dollar, I think the tires will outperform. The reality is that most people, and I think this is just the truth, is most people really aren't modifying their car for performance. It's part of the reason why they modify their car, but personalization to me plays a much bigger factor, I think, than pure performance.
Well, and I think that's the key, right? Putting a new set of tires on your car is not sexy. It's not going to impress your friends. It's not going to drop any panties. Fellas, pretty much putting lowering springs on your car is not going to either. At least it hasn't been in my experience anyway. Maybe yours is different.
It's worked killer for me. For me. Usually
killer.
It involves at least a bunch of guys.
Yeah, 4 dudes pulling their boxers down.
Yeah.
I think and maybe that's part of my problem with the overall mindset is lack of like honesty about why you're doing and what you're doing it. Look, if you want to lower your car, bro, fucking do it. I think that's great. Do you, whatever that means. But I do wish that we were all a little more honest about why. I want to lower my car because I think that shit looks cool. Hell yeah. I want to lower my car because I'm going to get 0.001 less G-force on a turn on something I don't even understand. And the car's never going to see anything but a freeway on-ramp at a higher rate of speed. Like, don't bullshit anybody. Just tell them you want it because it looks fucking cool.
Listen, I agree. I'm the king of the don't lie to yourself fan club. I do not have any interest in any people lying to themselves. I think everybody should be honest with themselves, because then, to me, A, you'll be much happier about the way you spend your money, and B, you won't be defending something on the fucking internet and having arguments with other fucking idiots over nonsense for no reason. It's like, hey, this is what I wanted to do. I think it looks good. Fuck you. That's how I feel. And I think that most people being honest with themselves about why they modify their car, it's for performance, sure, of course. That's why people tune their car or whatever, because it's faster, whatever. But if you modify for pure performance and you're looking to spend, let's say dollars of the smartest dollars you can spend on your car to modify it to make it perform better, it's like what? In our world, again, you talk about front wheel drive, all wheel drive cars, rear sway bar, tune, I don't know what I would pick after those two as far as the
Those
clear,
are
they're the clear 1 and 2. Probably
absolutely.
tune would be first because it's the most bang for your buck and you feel it in your in your ass, in a good way. You feel it in your ass instead of instead of
Not in
in
that uncomfortable technician way.
yeah, and that not in the uncomfortable way. So yeah, I think those are the two that are probably the best financially, bang for your buck. You get the best thing. Now you get into things like coilovers and stuff like that, and for me, that's kind of where I have a point of contention is where things get into coilovers. I'm more on the flip side because I think a lot of people overspend. People who can afford it tend to way overspend on coilovers, is because like obviously on our all track, I have Bilstein B16s. They're adjustable height and adjustable dampening. They're a great quality product. Bilstein makes nice stuff, comparable with KW V3s or H&R. I don't know I forget what their whatever adjustable dampening line is or whatever. Going to be all similar products, probably. Generally, I would rank Bilstein fairly good. Along, I think KW makes great stuff too. But most people, when you get an adjustable dampening coilover, you're never gonna fucking adjust that shit ever. You're gonna fucking maybe one time you might fuck with it, but you don't even know exactly what you're doing to get the best results because you're not tracking the car. If you track the car and you're like messing with the dampening to see what gives you best performance times or whatever, okay, cool. That dude Bryce, who we made that video with, who exploded his Golf R Trans, he's autocrossed his car. I don't even know how many times, 25 times. I have no idea. It's a shitload, whatever it is. He could easily be using adjustable dampening coilovers and, make a run, adjust the dampening, see what it does, make it adjust the dampening again, see the improvements, and actually get real world results. But the problem is, unless you're testing, you have no fucking idea what it's doing.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I would probably venture to say the majority of people in our world that do get coilovers don't even get their car aligned, one, which is just insanity to me. And two, like if you're putting coilovers on your car and you're not at least getting a corner balance check, dude, like you need to do that shit because it looks like, it looks like it's kind of right. Like that doesn't mean your shit's right. That doesn't mean it's balanced properly and you have your proper loads on each corner of the car. I like coilovers for the adjustability. I do think that, yeah, most people probably either underspend and buy like the cheapest eBay shit they can find, and they wonder why their car rides like crap. Or, there's definitely a sweet spot. What's the sister brand of KW? Is it
ST?
ST?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a great route to go. It's still all that same great R&D and everything, just in a more affordable, maybe not as amazing package. I mean, you don't have 4-way adjustable, 3-way adjustable, anything. You just raise and lower it, and that's good enough. Like that's pretty good. I think for most people, I think that's $700. Is that how much they are? Probably
Yeah, they're roughly
sub 1,000.
Yeah, they're sub 1,000 for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better route to go than like the $3,000 KW V3s. Now, if you're running a car that has dynamic chassis control, different story, because I really do, like, again, do whatever the hell you want, don't care. But for me, dynamic chassis is awesome. It's a very great feature to have on the vehicle, especially if it's a car that you're going to have more than one purpose. It's not just a track car. The ability to go boop, oh man, this is so nice and soft when my family rides in it, or boop, race mode, cool, now I'm John race car, this is so fun. To be able to retain that, I think, is outstanding. I think Bilstein does that as well.
They have, yes,
with one of theirs.
Bilstein has coilovers, but see, what I would recommend for most people, I think, and this is just my opinion about, I think what most people who have DCC cars should do, is just lower your car with sport springs and get Bilstein adjustable shocks and you will likely be very happy with the outcome.
Yeah, I've heard that's a good
The other
a good
thing,
route to go.
and I've been probably meaning to at some point make a video about it, and I likely will at some point, is most people don't know is that when you lower a DCC car, there's an adaptation to do afterwards. And
Right.
so if you don't do the adaptation, it fucks up the ride quality. And my understanding of the way it adjusts is basically everything becomes slightly harsher. So comfort becomes harsher, and then whatever sport becomes harsher, and then race becomes harsher. Whereas if you then do a readaptation after you're done, I think it might get a little harsher, but the shift is very slight as opposed to very drastic in comparison. But if you don't do the readaptation, number one, you probably also didn't adapt your headlights, so you can't see shit at night.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you can't see shit, and your car also rides like shit. So there's a double whammy.
Yeah, Paul will put a link in the description for you to buy those exact things that he's talking about from him, by the way.
I made a video with OBD11 on how to readapt my S4
Readapt it. Yeah.
my S4 lights I did on. So I don't know if it's exactly the same procedure on a Mark 7. I've never personally done it. I think our shop probably has, but yeah, obviously I'm not a real technician. As I've said,
as
I've said in the past, I'm a pretend technician.
That's the camera switching is very odd today, by the way. I don't know what the deal is with that, but whatever. Yeah, I think with suspension mods, people just want to like lowering springs and I'm done. And I just think you're sacrificing more than you're gaining. If you don't have a target of like, I want my car to have this particular wheel gap or something like that, I think most people actually would probably enjoy putting a sport spring on, like an H&R sport spring, and the appropriate Bilstein shock, and just rocking that. Where like what I always want from a car like that, my Blue R32 is a really great example, is I want what the factory did, just a little bit sportier, like not a lot, just a little bit. It's something with the R actually I would like as well. Like I want comfort mode to stay where it is. I want race mode to be just a little bit firmer and a little less body roll, which I think the Mark 8 actually might, Mark 8R might actually do for us, which will be super duper cool. Yeah. So what about other suspension mods? What's your take on polyurethane suspension bushings?
So polyurethane is a great way to ruin your life. I would say for most people, if you daily drive a car, it's a terrible choice because it's only a matter of time before you're not going to be happy with it. For me, as somebody, the thing that most, I think, especially people who are either new to modding or young, generally those two things go hand in hand. At least they did with me. Is what I did, and I think what a lot of people do. Correct. Feel free to correct me if you believe I'm wrong. Is I took a car and I modified it until I hated
it. You've done everything you could do to make it worse.
Yes. I had a puck clutch and fucking really aggressive mounts and polyurethane and blah, blah. And eventually I was just like, oh, wow, I hate driving this car on a daily basis. And probably that's what most people do is they get to that point and they're like, oh, this car is a race car now and I'm going to buy a new daily. And I think that's usually the way it goes down. Is like everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, this is a race car because I've ruined it. It's for a car you could drive on a regular basis. Now I'm just gonna call it a race car, which is fine. I actually think, to me, it's way more practical to have maybe a very lightly modified car. Assuming this is a feasible affordability for most people, is have a car that's maybe very lightly modified for a daily, and then have a car that's more aggressively modified for your whatever you call it. I don't even call it race car. Is kind of stupid because I actually think most people don't race their cars, but a weekend fun fuck around car.
Yeah, your weekend warrior. I'm gonna zoom in and out of traffic and do burnouts at Cars and Coffee car Yeah, I so I was actually very pro poly, not necessarily poly motor mounts or engine mounts, because I think that's a quite a bit different of a ball game that I do think is a great way to ruin how drivable your car is. Um, Depending on how firm of a bushing you go with. But when it comes to suspension bushings, I was actually very pro poly bushings for quite some time. Owned several cars with poly bushings on them, and they were all great, right? Everybody, when I was putting poly bushings in the Mark III, people are like, they're gonna squeak and they're gonna be terrible. I'm like, y'all, I've had like 5 cars with poly bushings on it. I've never had the problem that you're describing ever, not on one of them. And even on the Mark III, like it's fine. Then I did poly bushings on the Blue R32, and they were great until they all failed. So I did poly in, sorry, they didn't all fail. The dog bone mount poly didn't fail. I did poly in both bushings of the control arms, the front lower control arms. The fronts just exploded into pieces. I actually had to have the car towed. It was in an autocross, and I finished my last run, slowed down, hit the brakes to slow down, and the car just went like, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And then I had to like limp it back to the paddock, and like one tire was out like this because the bushing was gone. And then I found it might have happened in a different order, actually. The rear ones might have failed first. The lower front control arm, the rear bushing might have split first. I have them around here somewhere, I think. And then the front one failed. But yeah, I won't put that brand of poly bushing in another car. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
It's so bad they were lifetime warranty, and I told them no, I didn't want a replacement set.
I mean, I definitely had the experience that you talked about in terms of what people said to you in terms of squeaking and shit like that, which is a nightmare. If every time you go over a bump, it's like, you sound like one of those old cabs that every time it hits a bump, the whole fucking thing squeaks and rattles and shit like that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a place for it. And, even, in our world now, a lot of O34, one of the brands we sell a lot of, they do a lot of spherical stuff. And, spherical stuff makes noise too. And that's, as with anything, any mod you make on your car, there's going to be benefits and there's going to be costs. And with a lot of benefits that you get to make your car perform better is that it has downsides, and most people don't really take into those into account. But you want to put spherical bearings in everything in your fucking car, it's going to handle a shitload better. You could replace all of your bushings with spherical bearings. Guess what?
Sounds like a good way to ruin how your car drives.
Right, it's going to ride like shit.
Rides, yeah, I should.
It's going to ride like shit. I mean, it will probably handle a million times better. It'd be precise as shit, like whatever. But people don't, I think, have really a good context of what race cars really are. Like race cars are just a big giant metal rattle box with a large amount of power. Like that's what a race car is. They're not fucking comfortable to drive. They're not it's fun, but if you would never want to take a race car down the highway for 3 hours, you'd want to kill yourself.
Yeah, that's it's not ideal. I think the problem is, we get this new car and we're excited and we're like, okay, I want to modify it, right? That's like one of the first things I do whenever I get anything. It doesn't matter really what it is. One of the first things I do is look to see what the hell can I do to this thing to make it like just a little bit better, right? Whether it's a camera or a car or a tool or whatever. I want it this much better. And so we go down this rabbit hole of research, and you find, okay, lowering springs, cool, that's a mod. Then you find, you can get adjustable control arms that have spherical bearing. Oh, actually, hold please. That's a bad example of what a spherical bearing looks like. I have one right here. In fact,
there you go.
Adjustable rear control arm with a booted spherical bearing.
That looks like it's from O34.
It is not. It is from Grooven Auto Parts. This is legit though. They're also very expensive.
Yeah, I imagine they are.
Yeah, if you want a quick way to spend like $300, a set of these will get you there.
Yeah. So
one
imagine
click.
that thing that he's holding was formerly
I actually have another one. Hold on.
two bushings. It's formerly two bushings, one at either end. That would be rubber, and then metal at the mounting points. And now you replace it with something that's pure metal all the way through. Now it removes any of the I guess you would call it the jumping around of any bushing that would do, or flapping around.
Floppityness. It's
it-
about the flex. So you take a rubber bushing, of which I also have. So this is not rubber, but you'll get the idea. So this is a poly bushing. It's meant to flex. It's meant to move. Whatever goes through the middle can also flex and move. And you replace it with this, which is all metal. There's bearings inside of it. I wonder if you can see the bearings in here.
Oh yeah.
I don't want it to come apart.
What does
No,
that
there's
have?
not actual.
Yeah,
ball
say
bearings
it's
or
just
anything.
it's just a spherical bearing.
Yeah.
Whole way
So
through.
this is what you replace it with. And yeah, there's no any kind of anything to absorb any shock or dampen any vibration or anything like that. So all that feedback comes right back into your car. This is a rear one. It's actually the same part as that other one. So yeah, it can make for a rather miserable driving experience.
For those who are just listening, a spherical bearing looks like basically a metal orb within another metal orb that allows you to bolt it to the car. So the inner metal orb moves within the outer one, which allows the movement needed, but it doesn't really allow any flex or vibration or anything like that. So was that it? Would you describe that as a good description for a spherical bearing?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. If you want to learn more, go to Google and look at a picture of it. I think it'll make more sense if you've never seen one. But anyway, like all that's to say, we start doing this research, and we find all the things that we can do, and then we start to research like, oh, is it worth it? And we end up on some forum with Grease Monkey 69 talking about how great spherical bearings are on his car, but doesn't say shit about the vibrations, the rattles, the maintenance that he has to do. He has to take it apart and clean it, or at least just loosen it and clean it right. They don't talk about any of that shit. It's just like, this is the best fucking thing ever. I love it. And then you get it and you're like, wow, this shit sucks. And so you go from like, this is awesome, to, okay, this was a reasonable thing to spend a ton of money on, to that's the dumbest thing ever. So now when that next person posts about it, instead of making a logical post talking about your experience, you're just like, that shit sucks. Don't buy it.
I have a question.
And then we have the internet. Yeah.
Are you sure that you found Grease Monkey 69 on a car forum?
No, it's the joke that we used to use at the dealership when people would come in and say, I read on VW Vortex. Now, to be fair, sometimes they were actually right, spot on. But yeah, very early in my career, that was a major thing. Like,
I feel like
I read on Vortex, it's this, you need to do this. Like, the internet can't fix your car, man. Like, you could take it to Grease Monkey 69 and have them do it. But this was a little inside joke from the old.
I think Grease
days.
Monkey 69 might have been like a wife swap for him.
Maybe that's
swingers.
a different kind of grease, I think.
It is a different kind of grease. They use a lot more grease there.
Yeah, I don't know. That's above my pay grade.
Yeah. So no, I agree. Well, yeah, that's, to me, the whole Vortex fix your car maybe is a topic for another day. But yes, the spherical bearing thing is certainly something that I think a lot of people are not prepared for. They love the idea of modifying their car, but oftentimes don't have a clear context as to what they're doing in modifying their car. And I think I've made some videos around stuff, and I don't know, obviously it's so hard. I can't remember how clear I was in any of the content we've made around spherical stuff, of how I'm sure I've said, hey, this could result in more noise, but that was a big thing with a lot of the shock mounts on a lot of the Mark 7 stuff, is a lot of the camber mounts and shit like that creates a lot more noise. Yeah, because metal to metal, blah, blah, whatever. Like, you're going to end up in that circumstance, nothing you can do. And I'm in that circumstance with us because we have, camber mounts up top. I got all kinds of shit. But yeah, I actually do think the caster control arms are actually a pretty good mod if you are into any type of performance driving, uh, autocross, track days, whatever, because it changes your turn in pretty significantly when you're increasing caster, increasing negative caster. Whatever. When you're when
Well,
you're
yeah, I think the other problem too is like you don't know when to stop until you've gone too far.
right.
And it probably goes back to what you were saying about like, yeah, you end up ruining the car, and then you hate the car, you sell it for next to nothing, and some other jerk off buys it and is like, oh, this is great, I wanted this, and they drive a rattly shit box. And hey, if
Yeah.
you want to drive a rattly shit box, like fucking drive a
What
rattly
to
shit
me,
box.
what it resulted for me in, I would say, because I was young and inexperienced, is the idea that you think that overbuying is better. Like, oh, if a stage 3 clutch is good, a stage 5 clutch, that shit is fucking tits on Ritz. It's gonna be the bomb, and
Tits
that's
on Ritz.
Ritz. Yeah,
I
Ritz.
think the other thing that people get caught up into too is they buy all the things and do all the things at once. I'm going to lower it. I'm going to put a sway bar on it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the caster thing. I'm going to do the camber thing. All the adjustable stuff, right? If you are if you're new to modifying your car, I can't ask for this enough from you. If you truly care about learning about modifications and what they actually do instead of reading on a forum what they're supposed to do or listening to two idiots drink a kid drink that has alcohol in it on some podcast, do one mod at a time. Do the rear sway bar and see what happens. See how it changes your car for the better or for the worse. Lower your car. There's some mods that really like you do together, right? If you do coilovers, you're not going to do coilovers and then the shock absorbers later on. They go together. So I'm okay there, but don't put all the shit on at once. Slow down. It's just like with engine mods, right? Intake, exhaust, tune, all at one time. Like, fine, but slow down a little bit and learn what each of these things does so you can then know your car much better. Say, okay, when I lowered my car, it went from riding really well to riding like shit. Why does it ride like shit? Oh, because I dropped it 3 inches and didn't change the shock absorbers. Okay, now I need to change the shock absorbers. Otherwise, you have to rely on the perception and opinion of other people, and they're not you, and they may not have the same modification goals that you do. I even try really hard to do one mod at a time. It's what I did with the R32. I replaced all the worn shit. Then I replaced the springs and shock absorbers. Then I did the rear sway bar because I wanted to make sure that each one of these mods, one, was done correctly. Because if you fuck something up and you're doing all the things all at once, you got no idea what you fucked up. And two, I wanted to be able to articulate the change in each individual component so that if I wanted the car to do something different, I knew where to start, right? If I wanted less body roll or more car rotation, and I put the rear sway bar in and I got that, now I know, okay, rear sway bar does this to the car. I'm driving, in case you are listening, you can't see me. I'm not really actually driving, by the way. I'm just pretending that I'm driving. Felt like that was I need to clarify that one, huh? Yeah, but I like the ability to be able to articulate what the car did, how it improved, what loss I achieved by making this mod. And then that'll help you actually do a better job with the next mod and the next mod and the next mod.
I feel like we're doing a lot of projection on the in terms of what we're saying about what people are doing, and maybe we're projecting that on the person who's greasing their monkey 69. But
I like, is that going to become a staple like Johnny Oil? What'd you gonna say last? Johnny Oil Dick or something? Someone just put that in one of the comments. I'm like, Paul did say that.
That was
Johnny,
the thing. Johnny Oil Dick was a thing I said. I don't remember the context. There seems to be a few running jokes in certain comments, and because I don't very clearly listen to anything that we've said, I don't exactly know whether this is a joke or an insult. I'm a little unclear at most times
Yeah.
which one of those things. I'm just going to assume it's good.
Yeah,
And
just go with that. That's
we're just gonna
what
go
I do. Yeah, it's
yeah.
fine. Johnny race car is something that I used to say in class when and some people might get upset about this, but remember when I'm in class, I'm teaching professional technicians. So it's quite a bit different of a ball game here. And we talk a lot about like saving full GFF or saving full VCDS logs so that when after Johnny Race Car hooks up his OBD11 or his VAGCOM and goes in and changes shit because he wants it to get cool guy points, you can go back in and unfuck the car that he fucked up. So Johnny Race Car is a prevalent customer in my class, and often does a very good job of fucking his car up. So I think we've got a whole bunch of other Johnnies that now have joined the party, including Johnny Oil Dick. Big Johnny Big Dick is another one that we have.
I feel like Johnny Oil Dick might need to show his face.
Yeah, maybe is he in fact Grease Monkey 69 on the forum?
Oh shit, he changed his name. We knew it. We
can't be Johnny Oil Dick on the forum.
I agree with you. I think, well, first of all, I agree with your point about doing one at a time. More for me, and I agree with the same purposes that you said too, but excuse me, more for the fact that if you mod your car one mod at a time, it actually keeps you in love with the car longer. Is much like anything, is that if you feel like you're doing everything all at once, you get kind of tired of the mods on the car quicker, and you're not going to be as interested, and it's not as exciting anymore. Not new stuff, more power, different handling, whatever. And so for that reason, unless, again, like you said, there's overlapping stuff, which your example may not have quite hit the mark quite the way you wanted, but like you know, something like springs and shocks. Okay, it's fucking stupid to not do it this way, but something like a tune and a suspend and a coilovers, like, do them different, do them separate, because that way you get to feel the way the handling changes things. And then when you get the power, because the car is going to handle different because you now are cornering way faster or coming into the corner at a different speed than you would have been before, it's a different feel, assuming you're obeying the law. Always obey the law.
Yeah, I think that should go without saying. However, it's also worth saying, what about suspension mods that you're like, yeah, this you have essentially Carolina squatted your vehicle if you do this mod.
Have you ever seen a car with zip tied springs together?
No, I have seen a lot with the
clampy
PDI
guys
suspension. I have seen a lot with the PDI suspension blocks.
Have you ever seen the clampy guys on the springs?
I've seen pictures. I'm fortunate enough to never have seen them firsthand.
You've never seen them?
Not IRL.
I've seen I've only seen a few like really crazy things in real life. Mostly you see that shit in pictures online of, like, you know, like the just rolled into the shop or whatever like that. Obviously, I generally tend to never share stuff that we see like that because I don't really care to put people on blast. But as with anybody who's been in a shop long enough, you see a bunch of silly shit. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of the worst one I've seen. I definitely remember pictures of a car that had a block of wood in a shock instead of a spring. That was not in real life. It was a
leaf spring, wasn't it? a leaf spring?
That was not in real life. The one I'm thinking of, I think, was a McPherson strut that just had like a 2x4 jammed in the middle of it. That I'm thinking of. Now, that was not in real life. That was a picture I saw on the internet. It was not in real life. That would be wild, I'm sure, to drive in a car that had a piece of wood as a spring. Yeah.
I think it probably shouldn't have to be said, but zip tie suspension mods are probably less than ideal. I mean, look, that's a pretty important safety component of your car. It's not just to make it ride awesome or handle like a dirt nasty race car. There's a pretty big safety component in there. So zip ties and keep seeing something over this. I think there's a skink in the garage.
A skink? A skank?
Yeah, a skink, a small lizard,
A skink.
small lizard. In case
You better call your wife. She's gonna throw hands.
he's gonna fucking pop a cap and little tiny lizard's tail.
A skank.
Yeah. So don't hack up your suspension. Don't cut your springs. Don't do dumb shit like that. It's not worth it. If you can't purchase something of good quality, just wait. The suspension will be there when you're ready, when you save up the money for it. Don't just get a hole in your wallet I got to get my car lowered and do dumb shit like cut your springs.
Also, I would say, and something that might be a good point to make is, I think, in my opinion, it's better to buy premium brand used products over cheap, shitty ones that are new.
I think it's better to do nothing than buy cheap, shitty ones that are new. The used one could be a great buy. It just depends on what world you're existing in.
Yeah, it to me, it's something at least worth considering, because the reality is the cheap, shitty one you're buying probably doesn't have much of a warranty, and they're not gonna have. They'll might say they, in the words of Tommy Boy, I could stamp. I could put a guaranteed stamp on shit in a box or whatever, and it doesn't mean it means anything, right? So that's oftentimes what happens, I think, with a lot of the very, very, very low quality products, is they say all kinds of things, but in the end, they're never going to give you anything. They're never going to give you your money back. They're never going to do anything for you, and it rides like shit and sounds is like squeaks and rattles and whatever. And also, by the way, number one pro tip for suspension mods on all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive cars, specifically VW and Audi, replace your goddamn strut mounts and bearings when you put a fucking suspension in the car. Please, for the love of fucking God, do it, because if you don't do it, you're gonna regret it. It's gonna make noise. Even a good suspension, you could buy the best suspension in the world, and oftentimes it can get very expensive. I get it, especially you got I think our full OEM bolts and suspension parts and shit is like, I think $350, which is a lot of money when you're talking about, when you're talking about
the same damn price of a set of springs.
Right. It's a lot of money when you're talking about the full suspension. And I don't think you need to replace all of it, whatever, blah, blah, whatever. But definitely the front strut mounts and bearings, just replace them, please.
I don't know if you saw the ones on the black R32 that I pulled out. It was just like the center metal had separated. It was pretty legit. I think people just go in willy-nilly with suspension mods and don't fully flesh out what exactly they want from the car and what exactly they're actually doing. This is not necessarily a place to buy really cheap repop shit, right? When you're talking about a difference between a $220 and a $20 set of paddle shifters, buy the $20 ones, right? They're gonna be close enough. When you're talking about a performance piece on your vehicle, a safety piece on your vehicle, it is not the place to buy the cheapest possible piece of garbage you can find on the internet. The flip of that is you don't have to spend $3,000 on coilovers to get a good solid product that'll do what you want and deliver enough for you. Even if you are going to do some high performance driving, that $3,000 set of KWs that are amazing and awesome and really, for the right person, worth the money, they may not be worth the money for you. So buy smart.
I agree. Buy smart. My advice is, if you're looking for coilovers, buy cheap, high end. Buy the lowest end of the high end coilovers, non-adjustable dampening, and you will probably almost certainly be happy with the result. That's my opinion. I think that's an episode.
I agree.
I think we've solved it all, and everyone's
someone's going to say, well, what about wheel spacers?
Well,
what about lug nut lug bolt conversions.
Yeah.
What about tennis balls in your springs in case you're towing? What about footballs in your springs in case you're towing?
Well, we didn't touch on it. Torags, lifting, blah blah. Our dear friend Mike, is doing a bunch of Torag lift stuff. I'm a little bit have a little toe in that world because of one time I went off road, so things are getting pretty serious.
He might say he's an expert. I think
You could say I'm pretty much an expert at this point. Yeah, that's a different topic for a different day.
Okay.
Bye.